tonight we are working in PanPastels with colored pencil on top. This is a fox. The reference photo can be found over, there's a link in the video description. The link is free to everybody. It's a Patreon link, but you don't have to be a Patreon member to get this. And I keep getting people commenting, I wish you put the reference photo on the screen. There's limited space on the screen, and somebody said do that instead of the dogs. It's just not gonna happen. But here's the thing. You can get it and put it anywhere on the screen you want. Like, it is always available. It is always in the video description. The PanPastels I've got over here, I've got a set of 20. And the cool thing with PanPastels, you don't need to own every color in the world. You can have a fair, 20 is a really good number of colors. They also have different sets where they're like a set of 5. Get those. You can mix colors. You can mix them really well like you do with paint. So you don't have to run out and buy 100 different colors. For me, this set of 20 is what I've been using for several years now, and I've not felt the need to get more, although I am starting to run out of white. Finally, after all these years, they last a really long time. I've pre-drawn him out. I actually just, you can trace it if you want, you can freehand it, whatever you want, but I've drawn him out on a piece of tracing paper and then use transfer paper to transfer him onto my image. And the reason that I do that versus just drawing on the paper itself is if I do that, I'm gonna have a million eraser marks all over the place. This way, any eraser marks happened here and my artwork is nice and clean. My layers. Now, another thing I do wanna bring up, you guys had recommended the PanPastel. This is the colorless blender. And the first couple of times I tried it, I was like, really not seeing where it's fine, it works, but I don't know why you would want it like this. You don't need it, and you still don't need it. But the more I've been using it for large projects, oh my gosh, I'm in love with this stuff right now. I use it on sanded paper, a project I'm working on for a Patreon lesson of a fox, but it's a much larger, more detailed fox. This stuff's actually pretty cool. So it's not a must-have, but it is really handy for blending when you don't, I feel like I don't end up needing as much of the PanPastel because the colorless blender helps it to go a little bit further. We are going to start with the background. And all I'm going to do here is lift up. I'm just gonna rub, this is a soft tool, and I am just going to lift up some white and start laying this in. And I'm gonna do everything with white on that background first. Now, you're not really gonna see a lot here because I'm working on such a light paper. You can kind of see where I've laid it down. But I wanna make sure that I get everything in there now, and then I can softly blend over that after. And I went with a really light color today, so it doesn't take as long for me to cover that light background. If I was working on a dark colored paper, I would put more effort into really getting good coverage here. Now, this is a 5x7, and you'll notice that the drawing does not go all the way to the edge. The mat will actually cover this. And all the supplies I'm using are also listed in the video description. Oh, that's not even white. What am I doing over there? Also listed in the video description. While I'm at it, I can go ahead and throw the white where it's going to go on his little face. He's got white on his snoot here. Just getting the base. And I'll actually come through and make this more grays and blues. Now, there's a big blur on the reference photo right here. It's just a bit of snow that it's out of focus. I'm not going to include that blob because if you don't have the entire image, it doesn't make sense why we've got this blurry thing in the corner. So that I will not be doing. Okay, I can use this same soft tool, come back over here, and I'm just gonna pick up a little bit of brown and a little bit of, what is this one? That is burnt sienna. Now, this is gonna be really dark. You can see there's a lot on there. What I'm gonna do is take my paper towel and just tap that a little bit, get a little off, because I don't need it that dark. If I go too dark, it's not the end of the world. I'll just go back over it with the white. Yeah, that's the softness I'm looking for there. I don't want to go crazy. I want that to stay pretty soft. Okay, I'm going to wipe that off, and I'm just lightly going off on my Viva paper towel. It's very cloth-like. I like that better for wiping these off than like Bounty. It's just too papery. So what I'm doing right now is just taking more white and lightening some of this up because I don't want it too dark. Wade, no chewing your paws. Yeah, I know what you were doing over there. I've got a camera on you, sir. You're being monitored. But my paws are itchy. So this is just nice and soft. That's all I want, is something that's just soft. Well, there's no other word I need there. It's just soft. We've got that background with the light colors. I'd already put the light colors here. We'll still put some darks in so I can put the white pencil on top. What I want to do is start getting this area of his face. I am going to start building up the depth, how dark or how light something is, but I want everything a bit darker than what I want the end result to be, because I want to put pencils on top of this that are lighter. Knowing I'm going to use lighter pencils, I need what I'm putting in right now are the shadows. Now this is the trick to making your work look realistic. Get your values, and it doesn't matter if you have the right color. I'm using a combination of red oxide and was it burnt sienna? You use just red oxide and he'll be a more red fox. It's fine. Are your values correct? Dark's dark enough, light's light enough. This is the trick to making your work look realistic. It's not about the color. Everyone's so worried about color theory and getting the exact color. Okay, great, you made a perfect cartoon. Wonderful. If you want it to look realistic, it's your values. Color's not that big of a deal. So what I'm doing here though is looking at what is farthest behind. So the lighter colors are gonna lay on top. I wanna get these really dark values in first, and that means go darker than what you think you want that end result to be. So I'm going to block in these really dark spots. And we've got a little bit around his muzzle. Don't just start covering everything dark like this. That's not going to be cute. I mean, it'll be cartoony cute. So I guess it technically could be cute. Now this is that area on the reference photo that was white and blurry. We're going to darken that up because that is just the little snowflake that's out of focus. We've got this dark area right under his eye here. So it looks like I'm just putting this in weird random places, but I'm looking at that photo. Where are the darkest areas on that fox? I would rather be too dark than not dark enough. Not dark enough means a lot of extra work. Too dark, not a big deal at all, which will make sense in a bit here. And then we've got, let's just go ahead and fill in the eye. Okay, and now I'm going to use mostly my burnt sienna. Did I say burnt sienna or raw sienna? I think that was burnt. Yep. And we're going to fill in the other areas that are a little, whoops, it's a little too dark. Actually, let's mix a little bit of white with that. This is more of a gold. I've got too much red oxide on there. I need to wipe that off more. It's not the end of the world. Like, it's not going to make that big of a difference, but I want more of that golden tone. There we go. I'll have to put that shadow on the inside of the ear. We'll come back to that. And I've mixed again white and raw sienna. Burnt sienna. I'm going to keep saying raw sienna. See, raw sienna is the actual color I want. I'm having to mix it by throwing in some white to get something kind of close. If I really wanted raw sienna, I would also throw in some yellow ochre, but yeah. Some of this is a little bit on the light side. I'll come back and darken it up. Now we've got a little bit of this golden color right under his jawline here, or right under the upper lip. And I'm going to pull in some gray. Let's get a little brown, maybe a little bit of black. I need to darken up the chin a lot, and this is going to look way too dark, but that's because I want to come back through with the white. If this isn't dark enough, the white's not going to show up later. And I'm kind of pushing it with being too light again. Some of this I'm throwing some brown in there, some gray. I don't care as long as it's dark. It's not that big of a difference. Again, we focus so much on color. The color's not that big of a deal. Get those values in there. So speaking of values, let's get some of the black. We're gonna get some of the dark just in here, and I'm holding the brush a little to the side so I get that wispy look. Same thing over here. Darken that up a bit. That came down too far. That's okay. We've got a little bit of the dark red on the edge. Same thing, the edge here. We've got some dark on the nose. And there are smaller soft tools you can use too. Have a little bit more control, like the little angled ones. And I'll be cleaning up all these details with my colored pencils in a bit here. Remember, if this isn't dark enough, it would be better to be too dark than not dark enough. Again, like that really is going to make your life easier. I'm gonna mix a little bit of red oxide and black. This gives me more of a brown tone. We're gonna pull some of that in here. And I'm not gonna worry about the detailing around the eyes. We'll do that with the pencils. So you can do this all with just your pencils and no pan pastels. This just speeds things along, getting that base layer so much. So again, with that red oxide with a bit of black, darken that up a bit more in here. I'm not really worried about getting, well, nothing perfect really. Just this is your base layer. You're going to go over all of this. Some more of that red oxide right up against the ear. Soften some of this out now. Just smudging in where there's white of the paper showing through. I'm going to wipe what's on my pencil off. And just smudge some of that. Okay, I'm going to actually grab a little bit of yellow ochre and brown. I'm going to mix some of those two together and maybe some white. So I get this lighter cream color, kind of a yellowy. So it's not that I want this to be yellow because fur is not yellow. I just want to create a little bit more of a golden tone. So that's why I mixed those in there. And then let's grab some white so we can get this a little bit more tan. Okay, and then the last step, I'm just going to make sure I don't have a bunch of white little blocks showing through. That is a very scary, ugly stage, and whoever bid is terrified right now. This is going to be cute though, I promise. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, this is SpectraFix. Some people who work in pastels or pan pastels don't like to seal it with anything because when you put a spray over it or any sort of fixative, it can darken the colors. I find those SpectraFix only darkens if you put it on way too heavy. If you just do a nice light mist, and this is in a fine mist sprayer, so it is a very fine mist unless I get too close, this is going to help seal that down a little bit so that the pencil sticks more. If I go straight on this with the pencil, it gets almost slippery, it doesn't stick as well, and you're not going to end up knocking some of that pastel off. This helps seal it down a little. Now, spraying it does not mean that if I ran my hand across it, it wouldn't smudge. It 100% would smudge, but this is going to help lessen that. So I'm going to keep it back. I'm a little over a foot away, just real light. And it's better if you do a couple of light layers, let it dry in between before than doing one heavy layer. I'm going to dry that now. Now drying this with a hairdryer does a couple of things. One, it tightens that paper back up. When you get it wet from the SpectraFix, it gets a little bit flappy. The paper loosens up and it starts to warp and buckle. This will tighten it right back down into place. Because I've got tape, this is an acid-free pH neutral tape. It's not your normal masking tape. The reason that I've got too much information I'm trying to throw at you once. The reason we want a pH neutral or acid-free tape is that all tapes are going to leave some residue behind. If you're using regular like blue masking tape or whatever, you're leaving some of that not acid-free glue on your artwork, and over the years that can start to yellow it and cause issues. So this one is a pH neutral, acid-free. This is going to be your safest bet for using tape like that. And the other thing that I really love with using the hairdryer, if there's any if it's too powdery, too much dust, that's blowing that all away too. So you got a few benefits there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and switch out my PanPastels. I'm good with these for now, and grab the pencils where we really start making this look good. And what do I need to start with? I'm gonna actually start with his eyes, and then I'm gonna go to his ears. So I am going to start with my polychromos because they sharpen to a really fine point, and I need tiny little detail here. So we'll go with some black. Let's get some of, ooh, this is a good one. This is burnt ochre and kaput mortem. These three colors and maybe white. Let's go with these. Probably have to sharpen these though. Okay, let me sharpen those really quick. And I just use these little metal comb sharpeners. If you're using a pencil sharpener and your lead keeps breaking every time you sharpen it, then the blade on the pencil sharpener is likely dull. You need to replace that. Unless you're using Prismacolor, they're gonna break just because you breathed on them or in the general vicinity of them. But like if your other pencils, it broke off inside. If one breaks once, it's one thing, but if they keep breaking, then switch out the blade. Or the sharpener. Hold on, this has something stuck in it. There we go. Now I can sharpen that. So let's start by shaping all of this in. And I'm giving it a decent amount of pressure here because I'm not planning on doing a bunch of layers over that. If you're working on an area where you know you're going to need a lot of layers, you don't want to push very hard because that limits how many layers you can get on top. But here, I know that I don't need a lot. And then just above that line we just did, this is where the hairs start going, so I want to watch which direction this goes. See how I want to follow that eye, curve that around. This is why that pencil needs to be nice and sharp. I'm going to come back in there with my kaput mortem. We've got a line right in between the dark center and where that shadow fades out. This is going to look really weird for a few minutes here. Okay, I'm going to take that raw. This one was the burnt ochre. I'm going to start building up some texture in the eye. And we need the shadow on the upper lid there, because I'm not pushing hard yet. We also are going to have the white, so let's map that out. And this I can push harder. That can blend in a little bit with the black. I want that curved. It's very important that that is curved. And I need a darker, like reddish burgundy type. You might work, or I'm not loving any of these colors. I probably have them in the wrong place. Let's look at, here, we'll grab this. This will work from my Derwent Lightfast. This is Venetian Red. That looks like a good color. And I'm going to do a little bit of texture in here. So see, it's kind of a bunch of little circles that are overlapping. I'm going to go over the black up top as well. Let's define that pupil a bit more. Now notice that I'm not working on both eyes at the same time. Don't keep jumping back and forth. Do one and then do the other. I know some people are so worried about them not matching, they feel like they have to do them both at the same time. That is not going to get you very good results. Perfect one and then go over and perfect the other. You've got these dark areas right on the edge. And while I'm at it, let's grab a white Derwent Lightfast, because that is going to be one of my more opaque whites. Now, if you get an area, like if you're white, if I can't get the white bright enough, little trick on making your white areas brighter, okay, I had one over here earlier. Is it not here anymore? One second. Here we go. Take a Faber-Castell Perfection eraser. This is almost like an ink eraser. This will erase in a way that a normal eraser can't. Let's sharpen that guy. And where I want it really bright, where I maybe am not getting it quite as bright as I want, I'm just going to lift up whatever pencil is there. Now, when I go over that with my white pencil, it is going to be bright. Like it'll bring the paper pretty much back to white in a way that you're not going to get if you just keep layering on top of the color that's already there. I do want a blue, like a light ultramarine blue. That'll work. I'm lightly going to go over some of the white around the edge, because I don't want the whole thing that bright. Let's get that bluish tone, ends up being more gray. There we go. I want the bottom to be a little bit lighter, using my polychromos because I don't want it quite as opaque as what I got up there. Just clean up little details. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the eyes than I do everything else. Everything else can go pretty quickly. And I've got, this one is red violet. I'm just going to go right around that pupil so it fades out a little bit. It's not too defined. The trick here is we want this to be darker on the top and lighter towards the underside of the eye. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone. We may come back and do some work. Now, it looks kind of weird because it looks like it's got funky eyelashes. When I come back through with the fur around it, it'll look better. But let's go ahead and get the other eye. And I'm going to start with the white highlight because there's a big one on this side. And now I can come back through with the black. Right there in with the pupil. We've got a little bit of black there and then a little bit under the eye. Okay, we've got some burnt, this is again is the burnt ochre. Let's start getting that yellowy gold color in there. Not yellow, I say yellowy, but it's really more of an orangey gold. And see how I'm leaving some of the light areas through? It's kind of blotchy. We want that blotchy. Now I'm going to come back through. Let's grab some of that red violet. Pull that dark from the pupil up a bit more. We've got some blue over that white. I'm pushing pretty hard here to get that to show up. I'm going to do the same thing where I want it at the brightest. I'm going to erase some of it. I'm going to use the Derwent Light Fast. That white actually gets, in most cases, I find it gets lighter or brighter than my Caran d'Ache Luminance white, which is odd. Was not what I was expecting. I was super surprised to find that. And I don't want to use the Derwent Drawing Chinese White because that is just not, it's too thick for how little the detail is here. Okay, I'm going to leave that for a moment. That eye is definitely not done, but I want to start working. Actually, I'm going to darken a little bit around that pupil. I want to start doing a little bit around it for the fur. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just start working my way out. So this is the black. Actually, I'm going to not jump straight to the black. I'm going to use my violet. Yeah, this is better. Whenever I've got orange tones, actually, let's pull out. How many times can I say actually? Let's pull out first the, oh, hold on. This isn't giving me the notifications it is supposed to. This one's nice. It's not too orange. Terracotta. That's about as bright orange as I'm going to want. Probably. I may take that back. I've got middle cadmium red. That looks pretty good. Actually, this one looks really good. What is this? Venetian. Didn't I already have Venetian red out? Probably. I don't know. We're going to throw you out too. You look good. No yellow, we don't want yellow. These are pretty good for now. And then I've already got that actually, let's grab a, Derwent has some of the best, their purple is one of my favorite. It's really more of a magenta type color, but oh my gosh, this is one of my, like, I have to replace this color and Nightshade more than anything else, and white, with my Derwent Light Fast pencils. They're my absolute, like, must-have favorites. Okay, actually, that's the one I'm going to use right now. Tonight, the word of the night is actually. I want to see how many times I can say it. So I'm using this to build up my darker areas. I don't want to just jump to black. I can come back through with black where needed, but I don't want to just jump to that. And what I'm doing is working that pencil in the direction of the fur. Watch where these darker areas go. And this again is purple. You don't have to, if you don't have the same color as me, it like could put more than would work if you got the polychromos. Anything that's just a darker color, a darker kind of magenta, purpley color. Just pay attention to where these dark areas are. And the fur, as it comes in here, is super short, changes direction. And this is the thing, we've got to watch the direction. I don't need it exact. I want to create the effect of detail, but I'm not making the exact detail either. Block that in over here a little bit. These are going to be some of our darker areas. And I really just want to focus on this area, and then I'll work my way out. Well, a little bit over here too, because it will help me map everything out better. And the blender that I'm going to use, you can use odorless mineral spirits or OMS. I use that a lot, but when I'm working over PanPastels, which you can work on it over PanPastels, but something like this, I find the easier or faster way to go through. I'm really loving the Derwent colorless, or not Derwent, the Caran d'Ache, it's not on here, is it? The Blender Bright or something like that. Their colorless blender works really nicely. And not that I like giving Prismacolor bonus points, but I do like their colorless blender as well. If I'm honest, I do like it. They have a good colorless blender. The reason that I don't do colorless blender all the time while I use OMS, I have arthritis in this wrist. And when you're using the colorless blender, you're pushing really hard. So you want to keep that for your final layers. That's why I'm not using it yet, because I need a lot of layers on here first, but it'll let me smudge and soften things out. But I used to do that, and you can do it for your entire piece and skip OMS altogether, but it's kind of hard on your hand. At least if you, like me, have arthritis, that was a bit much. Like I really, between Prismacolors breaking and then my arthritis on top of that, I was just not enjoying colored pencil anymore. So these, using OMS and switching to pencils that don't break because I don't know, the weather changed, made the whole experience much more enjoyable. Now, while we're working, one of the things I want to bring up, just watch the direction that I'm moving these brush strokes, but one of the things I want to bring up, a lot of people are asking about the Temu products, and you see a lot of artists on YouTube pushing that crap. Oh, I just gave away the punchline, didn't I? It's crap. If you can buy it on Temu, it's either a knockoff or it's just straight crap. There are no good, I mean, I guess you could do Sketchbook or whatever. I won't give Temu my money. It's a very, there's some serious ethical issues with that company. But as far as like, let's say you're not even worried about that and you're just looking at like, oh, is it good product for cheap? Because I think everyone's cost of living went up. Trust me, I get it. Yeah, but it's crap. Like, it's not even worth the money. It's just a glorified, because they advertise so heavily, Wish.com. And Temu will pay some of the people who are working with Temu are making bank. Like, oh my God, that was a very old lady thing to say. They're making bank, but they're making a lot of money. It is the most shady. Like, I would not give that company money. I won't promote them. I want nothing to do with them. They keep trying to get me to advertise for them. I'm using white right here just for a little highlight, but those are not good products. Like, just go get generic. If you want to save money, just get generic from somewhere else. Like, I don't know, Walmart, whatever. But if you want to buy crap, you may as well buy I mean, I guess it's all coming out of China, but still, that company is just, whew, that's a no for me. But anything they'll advertise that it's excellent light fast, it's not light fast. They didn't test it. Trust me, they did not test it. They're lying about everything with that. Like, it's just absolute crap. Now with colored pencils, if you're just doing, let's say you're doing like adult coloring books and that stuff, you don't need the best pencils. You can get like the crap off Amazon. Totally fine for coloring books. But when you're doing fine art, something that you're really going to want to last for a long time, save your money and get the good stuff. Like, I would rather you have 12 quality pencils from Faber-Castell than 150 pencils that you got for $20 or whatever from Temu, but they're all crap. Like, you wasted $20 for something that you're really not going to get much use out of because they're crap. I'll probably be talking more about Temu moving forward because it's such, like, it's really frustrating to see how many YouTubers are pushing that crap. And it's like, wow, you have no shame, do you? And to be fair, it's possible they didn't research it and just don't know how bad the company is, but whatever. I'm going to take my eraser and pull a highlight here. Look how nice that is. It just lightens that edge up. And I'm using my polychromos white because I don't want it that light here. I just want to lighten it a bit. Polychromos white is much more translucent, so it works really well when you want slightly lighter, but not super, like, in your face bright. Let's start working our way down here, and I've switched back to my yellow. This one is the burnt ochre. If you have a yellow pencil out, put it away. We don't want yellow on the fur. The only time you're really going to have yellow on the fur, there are a few types of primates that have that, but for the most part, it's like if an animal is sitting in the glow of the sun and you've got that yellow around the edge. Other than that, yellow is generally not a color you want with fur. It's not so cute. I need a slightly darker, let's go with Caput Mortem, but a sharper Caput Mortem. The other thing with a lot of those products on Temu, and not just Temu, Amazon does the same thing. You have one pencil brand, they continuously change the name. It's the same pencil. They just put different names on the same exact, made in the same place, made everything's the exact same. There's so much shady stuff that goes on with them. And one of my favorites, a lot of them will use the name brand, made in the USA, made in North Carolina, I've seen some crazy stuff. It's the name of it. It's not actually made there. It's all made in China. All of it's made in China. So yeah, you've got some really questionable marketing going on with those. And I think Temu, I was at Boston, like they have their home, like a location in the US. I don't know what they're doing with that to get around certain things, but it's not the product. That's not where the product is coming from. A little bit of black here. We're going to get that shadow right around that eye. I want to darken up. I'm going to take the terracotta just around this edge and round that. I want to darken up the fur right in here. I'm going to darken right in there. And one of the nice things with art supplies, for the most part, you can spend an arm and a leg. Trust me, I know, because I have. But you can also do it in a much less expensive way, which I've also done. So I did the starving artist thing for a very long time. You don't need to own every color of every paint, of every pencil. Get a small amount of a decent quality. You're going to have, your results are going to be better. You know you can sell it without feeling bad that it's going to fade on the customer in a few years. There's just so many benefits to using the good stuff. It performs better, so your time of actually painting is more enjoyable. So many benefits. Just get fewer colors of the good stuff, and that also, using the white here, that is also going to help you learn to mix and blend better. So you don't, like, having too many colors can actually make things more difficult for you than it needs to be. Right now what's happening with this white, I'm pushing pretty hard, so I'm actually burnishing. I won't even need to use the colorless blender there, but it's lightening some of that and burnishing at the same time, giving me that nice smooth look. Switching direction of the fur there. I need to sharpen this though. That pencil sharpener was definitely starting to get dull. That one's not going to last me forever. So now I start to loosen everything up. I'm not being as precise as we move our way away from the eye. The fur gets a lot longer in here. And where I want that to show up more, I can switch over to my light fast white. Actually, this one's Arctic, it's not even white. And then where I really want it bright, we'll switch again to that here. Get a decent amount of the light here. We'll use that same light fast. Let me sharpen this pencil again. Light area going around his nose here, and right up in through this area. Fur is a little bit longer here. As we get down towards the nose, it gets really short. So you have a lot of that overlapping, that dense. If you make those long, it makes the fur look like it's really long in that area, which is not what we want. I'd rather just overlap it a little bit, make it more soft. Don't try to add, you don't need every little detail in there. As long as you've got your lights and darks where they go, that is more important than trying to get every little hair in there. See how we've got this darker area going up? That's the look that we want. Let's go on to the nose. So we've got this dark area right here, and that's rounded, comes back up. We've got the little nostril in here. Same thing, we've got a nostril over here. Just lightly going over that with the black. And then we've got the little, let's mark off where his face goes there. I'm going to pull blue for the highlight first and then put white over it. Actually, I'm going to just kind of shade all of this with the blue first, and then we'll use black and white. Let's see, these need to line up. Thin that out a little bit with the white over it. Just lightly shade all of that, gets a lot darker. Okay, got a little bit of edging, not too crazy, right along the side here. I'm not quite ready for his whiskers because I've still got to pull some of the floof out around his face. need a little bit, let's use mortem for some shadows in here. We've got a lot with the black little hairs in here, and I'm just going to build up a bunch of them. Let them overlap. We don't want this to look like random confetti. I'm just constantly looking at that reference photo. Where are the lights? Where are the darks? Which direction is this fur moving? Little guys in here. Change the angle of that eye just a bit there. So what happens is you start building stuff up, you'll start noticing little adjustments you want to make. So that's why you'll see me change a little bit around the eye, a little bit over here, a little bit over there. Now I'm going to pull some of the black. Now this will start making the eye look like it's bigger. This is shaped right, or the right size, but it looks small because I don't have these shadows in yet. Okay, let's go back over here. Start working our way out again. See how these are all slightly curved too. They're not just a bunch of perfectly straight lines. No, I won't do that. Change my mind. But we do need, I need a gray. A light gray, that'll work. Go. We can use that gray to start shading. This one is just cold gray, number 3. And that is because I did not quite go dark enough here, so I'll just use the gray to darken that up more. Okay, where do I want to move to next? Let's continue. Let's throw this in there really quick. So I'm pushing pretty hard with this pencil. Make that white stand out. Now where the white is not standing out enough, I will use my touch-up texture, titanium white mixture, and really make those pop. I'm going to overlap right between it. I'm pushing pretty hard, the background and the fur there, and then I'm going to go right back over it. With that pencil, we'll pull that out. Let's move up to that ear. Yeah, my arthritis in this hand has had about enough of me burnishing, that's for sure. That is why you don't see me do entire pieces just with burnishing. So again, just looking at the direction of that fur, I'm going to pull the orange. This one is, what did I say that was, terracotta? Right around this edge. A little bit in here. And this is where we can really start going quickly, laying this in. little wispy hairs. Make sure they're overlapping. Really important there. Push it pretty hard right along that edge. This one is I keep forgetting, the burnt ochre. Why can't I remember that? Just pull a few little wisps over there. I'm going to leave that for a moment. We'll move out into the head. It's always easier to go lighter and keep darkening as you need to. It's a lot harder to do the worst. Ice for the hand, Jason, would be the exact opposite of helpful for the type of like I have arthritis, and icing it makes everything so much worse. The best thing I can do is keep moving it, but when I put a lot of pressure, like burnishing, that's where the problem is. But icing is like, cold is the worst thing in the world for me. That is seriously painful. I'm using the purple to pull some of these darker bits in here. This is fun because this is the stage where he starts to look really cute. Actually, I'm going to pull a little bit more in here. We've got a little dark area there. I'm going to leave that for a moment. I'm going to scooch over here and do this ear. Let's do the dark around the edge. And I'm going to use my purple, so it's not just black there. Build in some of the direction of the fur. Constantly, I cannot stress this enough, just constantly look at that photo. I'm going to do this with the Derwent light fast where I want it to be a lot brighter. Now my black is not nearly dark enough, so I'll have to come back through with the black on the inside of the ear there. And see how this isn't making it white, it's just lightening what's already there. Now let's darken some of this up. Then this gets cut off up there by the mat. Okay, I'm going to scooch this back over. Actually, let's get this mapped out while that is over there. That stays pretty soft, but we'll throw a few, and actually most of this gets cut off by the mat anyway, but we'll get a few little hairs in there using Caput Mortem. Okay, now that that's mapped out, let's get this area. And this is softer in person. The webcam always makes it look a little bit more harsh. I'll show in the other camera in a bit here. These are much more wispy, but that fur starts getting nice and long, and poofy. Caput Mortem is one of my must-have pencils with polychromos. That's the one I think I go through faster. That and black are my two that I go through the fastest with polychromos. I don't think there's a single thing I've done with colored pencil in years that hasn't included Caput Mortem. Now, right now it's going to be a bit flat because I'm only using Caput Mortuum for this fur. I'll be coming back through with some other colors as well, mainly white. Just going to getting some of those in there. Okay, let's sharpen the white. And see how when they mix together, that's where we start getting that look of the fur, those light areas in here. I'm going to take purple and go inside that ear a little bit more over the black. Okay, now is where we start to really take a little bit more time and look at what details we need where. I need some more shading in here. I can't do the whiskers. That always makes such a big difference, but I have to make sure I've got everything in first. Just makes it, I mean, it's not that I can't go back in between the whiskers, but it makes it easier if I'm not trying to work in between that. Sharpen my Caput Mortuum. Oh wait, no, that one's already sharp. This is my favorite part of every drawing because, or painting, that end where these little things will make such a big difference. It's so satisfying to watch, like, after all that time, all of a sudden these last strokes are what makes, like, everything stand out. Go ahead and throw in the whiskers now, even though I've got, actually, wait, hold on one second. I can see this area needs to be much lighter. It's kind of weirdly dark. So I'm going to erase it first. Let's push that up. Oh, I don't even really need to go over it with a pencil. That did everything. But I do need to add a bit of floof sticking out from around his face that needs to go behind the whiskers. This is a lot smoother, or like softer looking. There we go. So it has a much softer look, there we go, than what you're seeing. I mean, I'm still gonna work on the values for a few minutes, but it's much softer than the harsh lines. It almost looks like thick paint strokes on this one, but it's a much softer feel in person. That's just the joys of a webcam. Okay. So I want to create some of this softness in here. Pencil's showing up really well over that PanPastel. This is really soft, so let's pull that. Holding the pencil to the side a bit here. Soften all that out. Where are those lights? That's what I'm looking for here. Fur change direction in there. And I want to soften that out, so I'm just going to go over everything. I'm really burnishing over the previous layers. It softens it, but also lightens it using the white pencil, which is what I want here. So it's serving two purposes. Now, if I didn't want to lighten it, then I'm going to use that colorless blender. That all gets cut off by the mat. So I don't need to go too crazy there. See how I'm just burnishing over that to soften that up. Okay, now I can put in the whiskers. Yeah, I want to use a bit of touch-up texture titanium white mixture too. And as always, I reserve the right to make a few touch-ups when I look at this with fresh eyes tomorrow. This I've sat in front of for really long, and I'm definitely most likely going to make a couple of touch-ups when my eyes are not blurry anymore. Do a few more things here. Start darkening some areas up. Switch over to the gray and get a few more little hairs in here. Now let me grab the touch-up texture titanium white mixture. Nope, not powder blender. They look very similar, very easy to grab the wrong one. Now this stuff, this is from brushandpencil.com. Blick carries it. I think they carry it. This has a powder, I already shook it a little bit, but there's like a powder residue at the bottom. Make sure that's all the way shaken up before you mix this, or use this, I mean. And I'm just going to take the cap of a water bottle. I always save any of these I find, and put a little bit of titanium white in there. I'm just going to tap some in there. Apparently I'm going to spill it all over the place. Where did that brush go? Sorry, I have to do this off camera so I don't make an absolute mess. And you don't want to mix a lot of this because it dries very, very quickly. And you can't, like, if you're painting with acrylics and it starts to dry, you add more water to that mixture. Don't do that with this. It makes it non-archival. Now, a lot of people will ask, can't they just use, because you'll see some people on YouTube do this, use a marker, a paint pen, ink tints, watercolor, any of the, I've seen so much acrylic paint. None of that's archival. You're talking about wax and oil-based pencils. You can't put a water-based product on that and have it be archival. It's you can put an oil product over a water base, but not the reverse, and that's what would be happening here. This product is made specifically for colored pencils to be archival. Now, you do want to keep it on a rigid surface. Like, I can't roll this up and ship it to somebody like overseas. I've had that happen in a couple of cases where I couldn't send something like a big project overseas because it had touch-up texture titanium white on it, and that, if it's rolled up, that could cause cracking. But as long as it's flat, like how this will be shipped in a mat, no problem there. Did I shake that all the way? Yeah. And I'm just going to pour a little bit of this into my mixture and then stir them up so they're about the consistency that I would want like acrylic paint to be if I were painting with a liner brush. So thinner than what it would be out of the tube, that's for sure. And I'm going to mix those together. I'm just going to use this small round brush, should work fine. If not, I'll switch over to a liner. I'm using this small round just because it happens to be over here and it should work fine. And so we're going to mix that so we've got that consistency there. About the consistency of like whole milk, I guess, maybe a little thicker. And now I can easily come on top anywhere where I wanted a brighter highlight that I just really can't get with the pencils themselves. And let's say I go crazy and I put something where I don't love it, let it dry and put pencils over it. It's super forgiving. And you can get these tiny little details that you just can't easily get with the pencils with white. And if you are going to put pencils on top of it, you do want to make sure it dries all the way. So let's say I wanted something to be like a bright pink, and pink isn't going to show up on this. I could do this first, let it dry, and then put the pink on top, and it'll show up really well. Actually, I want to go quite a bit darker with some of these areas here. You can see how bright that is. This area, I want to go a little bit darker on that patch. So I'll come back through with my pencils. I don't have a bunch of touch-up texture in here, so some of this I can work now. The white, and then I'm going to burnish right over to soften that up. And this is not where I'm putting things I want tiny detail, it's more where I want to lighten a large area. If I want tiny thin lines, I'm going to switch to the Derwent Light Fast Pencil. Like right there. Actually, that's a big glob. I'm going to thin that out by putting pencil over it. That worked really well. Let's grab my Kaput Mortem. And I'm going to go over that with terracotta. And the more I layer, it's just going to keep looking better and better. Just defining those values. Getting things a little bit darker, a little bit lighter. This whole area up here. Oh, where's I need my glassine back. I'm just going to tint this entire area. Let's darken here. Pull that all the way up over that portion of the ear. Again, this really gets chopped off a lot by the mat. So I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on, that's why it kind of fades out and there's just nothing happening over there, because the mat cuts all that off. softer floof here, so I'm just gonna kind of fill that in softly so it blurs out. Okay, and if an area feels like it's too, like you can't go light enough, it's probably because what's next to it isn't dark enough. And I'm gonna come through and do just that right in here. Let's start darkening some of that up. We're almost done with this guy. He looks so much better in person. Got a few areas that are a bit darker. Oh, and I'm missing his little eyelashes. Comes, let's see, we've got a dark area here. Actually, I'm going to burnish over that with my colorless blender. Smooth that out. See, the colorless blender, when you go over an area, it makes it darker, whereas if you, the opposite, you could obviously burnish out with the white and lighten it. But they both do the same thing. They're basically jamming that pencil into the paper. I think we're about done with him tonight. Again, tomorrow, I know I've got at least one bit on this guy. Tomorrow, I'm going to come through with fresh eyes and just clean up a few little areas. I do want to add a little bit of ultramarine blue in here, though, because it's going to make that orange really pop, even though that's not really calling for it on the reference photo. I'm going to add that where my shadows are. Oh, that looks so good. So it's not like too in your face with the blue, but man, does that make a difference in person. And this is just, I think this is light, oh, sorry, mid ultramarine blue. And that is the Derwent Light Fast. And all that gets cut off anyway, so we're not going to worry about that. If you want to learn to paint and draw, but you don't have any experience or your drawing skills aren't that good, join over 1,100 students and follow along with over 300 painting and drawing lessons. There are over 675 hours worth of lessons and new ones every week, just waiting to turn you into a master. The great thing about these classes are that you get to do them from your own home in your own time. If you're taking in-person classes, often it's very hard where you're either falling behind, you're trying to rush to keep up with other students, or you're working faster than the other students waiting for them to catch up to you. With my classes, there is no time limit. You can work at your own pace, whatever feels comfortable for you. Join before October and you will lock in my 2014 prices. That gives you all of these lessons for as little as $4 a month, plus bonus content to help you master your medium.